Welcome to part 3 of Blue Hills Revisited with Ian Doyle. Shortly we'll hear various episodes from 1972 to 1976, including the 5000th when Granny celebrates her 90th birthday. Also, the fascinating story of how the serial was made and why there are only 10 complete episodes in ABC Radio archives. You may be able to add to the collection, details later. From 1944 to 76, Blue Hills creator Gwen Meredith didn't write but spoke an estimated 7 million words, the equivalent of 60 novels, heard in over 6,000 episodes of both the Lawsons and Blue Hills.
I've never written anything in longhand, no. I started off typing them, and I'm a very bad typist. I always have been. I've never learnt to type. This was a very tedious, trying business. And after about 2 years, I think I'd only typed them for about 2 years, I started to use a dictating machine. And I've dictated every episode since. They are then sent to a typist, and she types them out. They come back to me, and I correct them, and I alter anything in ink that I don't like, or if I've repeated myself, or if they're too long. And then they go into the ABC, where they're retyped nice and neatly, and erroneate off, with a copy for everybody.
When you dictate, could you explain your thought processes, how you do it?
I don't think about it very much until I get to the microphone. You have to then dictate the narration to indicate what's happened before, and this brings it back to your own mind anyway. And then you just are each person. I am Rose, and then I'm Granny, and then I'm Meg, and I have to be able to get into each of their minds to speak as they would speak. This sounds as though it would take you forever, but it doesn't really, because in my opinion, the whole of both the Lawsons and Blue Hills has been based on character, and so to me it's essential to be very au fait with your characters, to really feel that you know them tremendously well, so that you don't really have to think. You know how they would react to any situation and any emotional problem.
Do you find yourself taking on their voices?
Occasionally. I used to do this quite a lot. Not that I'm an actress, I'm terrible, but I used to, and one day my husband heard me and he said, "Good heavens, you must be crazy. It's hard enough for a typist to take it back anyway, and for you doing all the accents." He said, "Oh no, think of the poor girl." Always, if I was doing an American accent, for instance, I would do it a little American, because in this way you can't go wrong with the lilt and the accent, and this is why I think dictating is by far the best method of writing dialogue, because you simply can't say something that's wrong. It can't be stilted if you're saying it.
With that in mind, listen now to Gwen Meredith as she dictates a fictitious scene for Blue Hills into a tape recorder before it's sent for typing. The blips are a result of her pushing the pause button on the recorder as the dialogue develops.
I do not dictate from notes, but in my mind a rough idea of where I want to get to by the end of the episode, and of course an overall mental picture of the whole plot. Righto, well, to begin with, I just turn the tape recorder on, count 10 to let the tape get well underway, announce the number of the episode, and then start. Life at Dunvegan has settled down to a very quiet pattern. Stop. At the moment, Meg and Granny are sitting in the dining room, Meg with a bundle of darning, and Granny looking somewhat wistfully at the clock. Stop. Next line, Granny. "How soon will lunch be, Meg, question mark. It smells delectable." No, sorry, Joan, change that to appetizing. Next line, Meg. "Oh, when Jim comes in, Mum." Stop. Next line, Granny. "Well, he should be here." Stop. "It's 1 o'clock." Stop. Next line, Meg. "That clock's fast." Stop. Next line, Granny, in brackets, regretfully. Stop. Next line, Meg. "He shouldn't be long, though." Stop. "He's only gone out to get a bit of wood." Stop. Next line, Granny, I don't know why you persist in using the old fuel stove, Meg, stop. Not when you have a perfectly good electric one, stop. Next line, Meg, it's not for the stove, stop. It's for the fire tonight, stop. Rose and Ed are coming over, stop. Is Jim going to chop the wood, or has he got to set up the saw bench, ? Next line, Meg, neither, stop. He said he'd use the chainsaw, stop. Next line, Granny, didn't Ern say there was something the matter with that chainsaw, stop. Next line, Meg, immediately worried, close brackets, did he, ? There is the sound of a chainsaw starting well off. Next line, Granny, oh well, it seems to be going all right, even I can hear it. Starting, stop. Next line, Meg, what did Ern say about it, Mum, ? Next line, Granny, oh my dear, I don't remember, stop. In any case, I don't understand these technical things, stop. Next line, Meg, in brackets, worried, close brackets, I do hope it isn't dangerous, stop. Next line, Granny, oh Meg, really, ! You worry about everything, stop. Good gracious, ! Jim has been using a chainsaw practically since they were invented, stop. There is the sound of the chainsaw shrieking to a stop, followed by a crash. Next line, Meg, there, ! Something's happened, stop. Next line, Granny, in brackets, now a little unsure herself, close brackets, yes, well, next line, Meg, in brackets, fading, I'm going, whatever you might have to say about it, yes, stop, very well, Meg, stop, in brackets, her voice fading, next line, a medium pause. And then that scene, of course, would be followed by a scene when Meg reaches the wood pile. Don't ask me if anything happened to Jim, because, as I said before, this scene has never been written. And I'm not going any further with it now, though I must admit it's a bit of a temptation.
When you started dictating your work, it must have been the 1940s. What sort of recording machines were available then?
I really don't know the whole range, but the one I had was, it stood about 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet high, and it had wax cylinders on it. And these went round, and a needle marked them. And then at the end of each one, you had to clear them off with another machine, which shaved off a little bit of wax. And, of course, gradually the cylinders got thinner and thinner until you had to throw them away.
And how was it done? How did the typist then handle that wax cylinder?
Actually, it was very easy to take back because it had a little slip of paper that went in the slot in the front, and every time you made a mistake or wanted to go back over something, you just made a mark on the paper. Whereas now, with my little tape machine, I just say, oh, sorry, Joan or Jill or whoever's typing for me, I meant to say so-and-so.
Could you describe how you first came to dictate an episode?
Yes, my husband was a businessman and he was accustomed to using dictating machines. And one evening, I think we were at a gathering and the subject came up and he said, oh, I'm telling Gwen she should use a dictating machine. And a friend of mine here, it was the local solicitor in Moss Vale, Hale Payne, he said, I have one in my office. He said, I'm going to lend it to you for the weekend, Gwen, and try it. So I took it home, I tried it, I went to Sydney on the Monday and bought one of my own, and I've never typed an episode since.
Over 33 years, there must have been many cast changes, indeed even some actors who died. Did you ever kill people off much in the serial?
I did it only once. We lost one actor who went to Perth, and I had him have an accident and was killed. But the reaction was so great that I never did it again. Oh no, it was a most unpopular move. And I can remember one of my friends really abusing me about it because her young sister had come along. This friend of mine was not a listener, but her sister was and her mother was. And the young sister came along and said to her, oh, Joy, don't you think we'd better go up to Mother? And Joy said, why? And she said, because Joe's dead. And Joy thought it was one of the family. Joe, who's Joe? Joe in the serial, of course. Mother's going to be so upset. And, of course, my friend had been given a terrible fright. I was very annoyed.
Those of you who were devotees of the serial will remember the way Gwen Meredith eventually solved the problem. She simply transferred various characters interstate or shipped them overseas. Now to the riddle of why only 10 of the 5,795 episodes broadcast survive in ABC radio archives. For a major clue, here is long-time Blue Hills technical officer Terry Unit.
I think in the early days we used to go out live with it. And remember we used to record in a Market Street studio where Centrepoint now stands. And we had a big barn of a studio with this one always sticks in my mind, with an air conditioning duct in the ceiling. And invariably, if you went to record and you didn't check the studio pretty well before you started out this day, the birds used to fly down this air conditioning duct. And you had to make sure before you went on the air that you chased the birds out of the studio before you could go on the air.
I've heard of bats in the belfry, but pigeons in the air conditioning duct? For the solution to our riddle, rural reporter Alan Humphreys spoke to ABC radio archivist Leslie Loughnane.
Radio Archives was only set up in 1970, and so the then sound radio archivist Val Napthine had quite a difficult time in 1970 going back and collecting old radio programs. In fact, it was a phenomenal job because there were the situation was that producers all over the ABC had discs and tapes in their cupboards, and it was her job to go around and try and find things, catalogue them and collect them. And she actually did a marvellous job. Our collection of early radio history, considering we were only set up in 1970, is quite good, although nonetheless somewhat patchy. There was a different concept when people were making radio programs in the early days of radio. A lot of material was live to air and not pre-recorded, which means it's physically impossible to recapture it. The early days of Blue Hills, it would have been recorded on acetate disc, but then they would have moved fairly quickly into tape in the early 1950s. And tape wasn't considered to be recyclable in those days. It was an expensive commodity and it was used again. And there are horror stories all over the ABC about program makers who've lost valuable programs because it's been recorded over.
With the acetate and the magnetic tape, do they store easily for 20 or 30 years?
Magnetic tape has a fairly good archival permanence. Acetate disc, that's not the case. Early acetate discs that haven't been kept in fairly good storage conditions would by now be well and truly deteriorating. The disc itself can't be restored, but we have specialist technical equipment that can record off acetate disc and make improvements to snaps and crackles, and there are various restorative processes that our specialist technician can do to preserve and enhance the sound on deteriorating acetate discs. The whole concept of archival preservation of things in a broadcasting organisation is a vexed one, because obviously the major function of that organisation is to put programs to air, to provide programs for people. And therefore it has been difficult, when there was originally no archives and then there was only one archivist, for that person to convince people that it was a valuable and important thing to be doing. But since 1970 that's been done, and in fact Radio Archives, starting off with Val Napthine and a desk, is now 18 people. We've got something like, in our database we've got 20,000 items, and that's only a third of our collection because we're not as yet fully online in the computer. So we've really, in 20 years, we've done as much as is possible, bearing in mind funding limitations, to redress that imbalance, that early imbalance.
Do you think there might be other ones still out there?
It's always possible that there are people that have recordings of it at home in a garage somewhere, and if they do, it would be useful for us to have them in Radio Archives, so that we could always provide a copy of them for people if that's the case.
The address to write to is ABC Radio Archives, GPO Box 9994, Sydney 2001, and outline the material you've got available. Incidentally, all 5,795 written scripts are in safe keeping in Canberra. Here now is episode number 5000, broadcast on October the 3rd, 1972. It was yet another milestone in Australian broadcasting, and was celebrated with Granny Bishop's 90th birthday.
ABC presents Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. Episode 5000. It's the day of Granny's 90th birthday, and at Dunvegan, there's a good deal of excitement. Meanwhile, in High Valley, Joanna is preparing to make an early start for Canberra. Rennie comes into the bedroom as she finishes brushing her hair.
Well, how are you going, Joe? I've got the car out for you, filled her up, and checked the oil and water.
Oh, thank you, Rennie. I was going to ask you about it, not wanting to run out of petrol halfway over the mountain.
You could send Fleur back for it.
She sounded really excited about coming into town for the day. I think one of her troubles, is that she gets very bored down here in the valley.
She should have thought of that before she married Jack.
I guess so.
Talking of marrying unsuitable people, I hope you don't find that your mother has fallen into Michael's arms.
Oh, Rennie, heaven forbid. What a thing to suggest.
Well, you told me that's why you're going into Canberra, because you're worried about her.
Oh, yes, but even Mother couldn't be as foolish as that. Hey, if I'm not going to be mighty late for Fleur, I'd better go.
Chances are, knowing that young lady, she won't be ready.
Well, you better get a move on, darling. Joe's due any minute.
Well, I'm being as quick as I can, Jack, but I don't seem to be able to get on with things this morning.
I'm not sure you ought to be going at all. Well, you look pretty peaky to me. You don't think you'd better have a day in bed?
Well, I've been looking forward to going, Jack. If I don't feel better when I get there, I'll go to the chemist and get something.
Much better to go to the doctor. Now, look here, darling, do that. Call in and see Dr. Rhodes. He could probably give you a shot of antibiotics or something. I say, Fleur, you don't think... Maybe it's not flu at all. You don't think...
That I'm pregnant? Oh, don't be so silly, Jack. As though I wouldn't know.
But, darling, you don't function to schedule. You know that.
Well, it's a lovely thought, but don't let's build up false hopes. I'm reconciled to the fact that I'll never have a baby. Well, so don't let's talk about it.
No, of course not, darling. Just a wild idea, Now, look, you finish getting ready while I write you out a cheque. I've looked at the bank account, and I reckon you can bust up $50.
$50? Oh, Jack, are you sure?
Well, you only go to town every pancake day. Why shouldn't you have a fling while you're there?
Oh, Jack, $50.
I suppose it is a bit much for us under the circs, but, well, you can't buy much for $50 nowadays. But, darling, I just thought you haven't rung your grandmother.
Well, I'll try to do it before I go. There's no sign of Joe coming yet, is there?
Wait till I look. Yes, just down by the river bend.
Oh, no, I won't be ready. I certainly won't have time to ring Granny.
Oh, then for goodness sake, do it from Canberra. Oh, but everyone will be ringing her today. Dad's going to send a telegram from the Porter clan.
If he remembers.
He'll remember. Anyway, Silver's sure to remind him.
Everyone's coming to depend on Silver for quite a lot, aren't they?
Ah, that sounds like Joe and Fleur on their way.
Max, I think you make up half the things you tell me you hear.
Would it impress you?
Oh, tremendously. I can't hear anything that sounds remotely like a car.
Ah, your ears aren't attuned yet. You wait till you've been here a while.
Do one's ears become accustomed in a month?
I thought perhaps you might have forgotten about the month. I got the impression, that you were becoming reconciled to the country, that you might even be reconciled to the idea of living here permanently.
Now, Max, it's much too early in the morning for such a proposition. And don't forget you want to send a telegram to old Mrs. Bishop.
Well, I don't care for the word proposition. It's an entirely honourable proposal.
The telegram.
All right, the telegram. I imagine old Ed's going to have a rush of business this morning. I guess everybody will be sending congratulations to the old lady. I know Bella and old Davy were going to.
Anyone home? Where are you, Mabel?
Oh, Davy, it's Bella. Come on in, Bella. We're in the breakfast room.
Yeah, you're just in time. You can give us a hand.
What with? How are you both this morning?
Oh, we're fine, Bella.
Never better.
I thought the trip to Canberra yesterday might have had some ill effects, Davy.
Did me good. Anyway, I've got to get better now, or Mabel's going to haul me off to the seaside.
I'm going to haul you off anyway.
You may as well give up, Davy. Everybody is determined you're going. Anyway, what did you want help with?
We're working out a telegram to send to Mrs. Bishop.
Oh, you're slow off the mark. I've already sent one.
Yes, well, we were trying to think of something a bit original.
Oh, we should have Kay here for that. But Paris is a bit far away for her to be any help.
I wonder how things are going with them all, especially poor little Penny.
Yes, we'll probably hear today or tomorrow what their movements are.
Yeah, sure to. Now, don't get off the subject of this telegram. We want to think of something to please the old lady.
Oh, just sending the telegram will probably do that, Davy.
Oh, we mustn't forget to ask old Ed to tell the people the other end to put it on one of those fancy congratulation forms.
Isn't it a pity Ed isn't going over to the party? Mrs. Bishop, too. However, I suppose he can't leave the post office.
Was that call to send another telegram to Granny, Ed?
Yes, Rose, from old Davy and Mrs. Chalmers.
I do think it's a pity you couldn't get to Dunvegan for Granny's birthday, Uncle Ed.
One can't absent oneself from one's post merely to attend a birthday party, Topsy. Duty is far more important than pleasure. That's what you young people seem to lack today. A sense of responsibility.
Oh, that's unfair, Ed. In any case, you said last night you wouldn't get any pleasure from going to Granny's birthday party.
What's that?
I said...
Oh, never mind.
Well, I'm sure she would have liked you to be there, Uncle Ed.
Personally, I think far too much is made of anniversaries. I can never see why it's more important to be 90 years old than 89 and a half, or 90 and a quarter.
Oh, someone else. Do you expect this is another telegram for Granny, Auntie Rose?
It's quite likely, dear. Oh, my goodness, she'll be having an exciting day, won't she?
Well, Granny, what a morning you've had.
Yes, indeed. I've not had a birthday like it, not since I was a child. I remember they were exciting events then.
I suppose it almost makes it worthwhile being 90, does it, darling?
Oh, I wouldn't go quite as far as to say that, Mel.
Well, I think it's simply wonderful. Now, just look at all those telegrams. From Turnabulla and Narweena and from Sydney, too, and Manaroo. Even one from the Carsons at Uluru. I expect they heard through the Brackens.
Yes, news certainly gets around.
And several from High Valley. And all the calls from local people. It's going to take you 6 months, darling, to acknowledge them all.
Yes, I have been well remembered. The only one who seems to have forgotten is Fleur.
Yes.
Time yet, Granny. The day's only half done.
There. Now, this could be a telegram from Fleur now.
Well, Meg. Why, my dear, what is it?
Meg, you look as though you'd won the lottery.
Oh, Jim. Mum. Oh, it's so wonderful. It was Fleur.
Well, I am gratified that she remembered. I don't know that it warrants such elation as you're displaying.
Well, actually, it's nothing to do with the birthday, Mum.
Oh.
No. Fleur was ringing from Canberra. She's just been to the doctor and she's having a baby.
Oh.
Do you wonder I'm excited? He said there's no doubt about it.
Oh, Meg, my dear, that really is news.
Excellent, most satisfactory.
And the news coming on your birthday, Granny. It's strange, that, you know. Yes, very strange.
What is, Jim?
Oh, nothing, Meg. Nothing, my dear.
Oh, you're very transparent, Jim. You were thinking, weren't you, that it was a beginning and an end.
Oh, now, Granny, I didn't say that.
No, but you were thinking it. But you're wrong, you know, Jim. 90 I may be, but I'm not dead yet.
And so ends today's episode of Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. Those taking part in this week's episodes were Jack Porter, Peter Whitford, Joanna, Faye Kelton, Old Davy, Edward Howell, Mabel, Nancy Stewart, Fleur, Juliana Allen, Rennie, Lionel Long, Bella, Lola Brooks, Melissa, Joan Bruce, Rose, Myva Drummond, Topsy, Nari Thompson, Granny, Queenie Ashton, Ed, Charles McCallum, Meg, Ethel Lang, Penny, Rosemary Webster, Gray, Leon Gregory, Kay Porter, Coralie Neville, Young John Porter, Myrna Dodd, Max, Ron Roberts, Jim, John Barnes. Production, Ron Blair.
None of the actors in episode 5000 could have known that the sun was beginning to set on Blue Hills. It had only 4 more years to run. In the serial's final week in September 1976, here now is episode 5792.
ABC presents Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. Arabella Fairfax has left Canberra to begin her caravan trip around Australia. Melissa, Joanna and Jane, having seen her off, returned to the Gap to find a telegram for Jane from her mother to say that she would come to Sydney to see Jane off to America. Before that, she would visit Dunvegan to see the family and hoped Jane would join her there. Jane rang Dunvegan and they're now talking over dinner.
Well, a telegram from Anne and a ring from Jane, all in the one afternoon.
And how lovely to think that they will both be here, Jim.
Wouldn't Meg be excited if she was at home?
When are Anne and Jane planning to get here?
In 3 days, Ed.
I must say I'm very pleased that Anne is coming down.
It'll be lovely seeing her, Granny.
Oh, I wasn't only thinking of that, Rose. I think it's advisable that Anne should meet Mrs. Ford before Jane goes off to the United States with her.
She mightn't be so enthusiastic about Jane going after she has met her.
Oh, Ed, she's a very nice woman.
I was never impressed with her myself.
Well, if you've finished with your plate, Ed, I'll take it out to the kitchen and help Topsy bring in the sweets.
My only disappointment is that Bea isn't coming down, too. Seems such a long time since I've seen Beatrice.
Well, at least you'll get first-hand news of her from Anne.
No more word of when Meg might be expected back, Jim?
Not yet, Ed.
How lovely it would be if she and Fleur got back before Anne and Jane had to leave. Do you think that's possible, Jim?
Well, anything's possible, Granny, and with a bit of luck, it just might happen.
It seems a long time since Meg left.
Oh, it isn't really. Just seems that way, I guess.
Yes, of course. And in any case, we must concentrate on the good things, on Anne and young Jane being here. I must say I'm very glad that Mrs. Ford could see her way clear to allow Jane to come.
It probably suited her.
Well, now, Jane, my dear, is everything arranged with your family?
Yes, Mrs. Ford. I spoke to Great Granny and she was quite excited about it all. You see, Mum doesn't get down very often. Oh, it's a big family. I don't suppose they ever all get together now.
Our children have to grow up, and they have to lead their own lives. Oh, my goodness, look at the time. I promised to go and see Davy. I can't imagine what he wants me for, but I better go just the same. Tell Jo where I am, should she be wanting me, Jane.
Yes, Mrs. Ford.
Come on in, Melly. Thought you were never going to show up.
I've been talking with Jane, Davy.
When's she going?
Well, she's leaving here the day after tomorrow, meeting her mother in Sydney, after which they will both go up to the MacArthurs.
And I reckon that'll be the last we'll ever see of young Jane.
People come and go in our lives, Davy.
Yes, no doubt about that. But what about you, Melly? Have you decided when you're pushing off?
I thought I'd wait until Bella came home.
Oh, well, that'd be very nice. Myself, I don't know why she's got to go to that place in Canberra after she leaves the hospital.
Bella's having a little trouble with the feeding of the baby, Davy. Oh, nothing to be alarmed about. But David thinks it would be better to get everything well under control before she comes back here. Because after all, it may not be as remote as the valley, but it's hardly next door to the clinic.
And who wants to be next door to a clinic?
Well, right now, it would be a help for Bella. But Davy, what did you want to see me about specially? I gather it was something special.
Well, yes, Melly, it was. I've got a feeling in my bones, you see, that it might be quite a while before we see you again.
Why should it be? With Joanna here, I imagine I shall be coming back and forth quite a deal between Australia and the States.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But with this fellow Castles looming...
Looming?
Now, you know what I mean, Melly. I reckon when you get to San Francisco, you're going to be pretty much taken up with this man. Might even end up marrying him. The women in this family seem to think it's almost a foregone conclusion.
Oh, then they know more than I do.
Well, that's as maybe. But me, I just thought it'd be nice to have a bit of a farewell party for you. Nothing big, mind you. I'm not aiming to entertain the neighbourhood. But, well, a farewell dinner among ourselves.
Well, that would be lovely, Davy. Charming.
And,
And what?
Well, I thought it'd be nice to wish Max and Silver good luck in their new venture.
Oh, you know, Davy, you are rather transparent.
Oh, Blowed if I know what you mean by that.
I mean that your whole aim from the beginning was to invite Max and Silver to dinner.
No, you're wrong. My aim was to try and bring old friends together in a spirit of friendship.
Oh, I don't doubt your motives.
But you don't agree with them?
Well, it has been a long relationship between Max and me, Davy. And it hasn't always been a happy one.
Maybe not, Millie, but you're going off now, and let's not beat about the bush. It's 100 to 1 that by the time you come back again, you'll be married to this Richard Castles. So why bear ill will? I wouldn't want you to go away with hard feelings, Millie.
Oh, I no longer have any hard feelings against Max, Davy.
You haven't? Well, I couldn't be more pleased to hear anything. So help me, that's the best thing that's happened since David got the job with Michael.
I didn't know it meant so much to you.
But of course it does. You're my sister, and Max a lifelong friend. A lifelong neighbour, Millie. I know you were very attached to Max when you were a girl. You would have liked to have married him. But if you had, do you reckon it would have been a complete success? You'd have been stuck in the valley, you know, and that wasn't your kind of life.
I'd have accepted it then.
But you weren't really prepared to accept it later, when you and Max decided to get married when you came back. Now, were you? Oh, I'm not trying to force your confidence, Millie. I just want you to realise that maybe things worked out better for you, the chips falling the way they did. And I think, if you're honest with yourself, you'll admit you're going to have a much better life with this Richard Castles, running round the world from one country to another, than stuck on a cane farm in North Queensland with Max Porter.
I'm not disputing that.
Then bury the hatchet. Make friends again, Millie.
Well...
In most things, you're a very generous woman.
In most things?
Well, that's what I said. So why not be generous in these personal relationships, too?
These relationships?
Eh?
Are you being even more devious than I realize, Davy? Are you thinking of Michael as well as Max?
No, so help me, Millie, as I stand here. No, I wasn't. Not, of course, that it wouldn't be a nice idea.
Davy, you are nothing but an old fox.
Hmm? Oh. Oh, well, what about it?
I feel I'm being talked into this.
No, Millie, you can't talk people into goodwill. If you're going to hold out a hand, you've got to hold it out. No half measures. And you don't want to hold it out because someone's nagging at you to do it. I'm not asking you to be a hypocrite. On the other hand, I wouldn't like to see you go away from here either taking bad feeling with you or leaving it behind.
I told you that I haven't for a long time had any ill feeling toward Max. As for Michael, we quarrelled bitterly, Davy.
You never wanted to marry Michael. You were doing it out of a feeling of indebtedness, obligation, duty. Something to do with that accident of his, I think. Oh, I'm not asking any questions. I don't want to know. All I'm saying is that you didn't really want to marry him. It's only your pride that was hurt.
Possibly.
You wouldn't want to be anchored at Wedgwoods any more than you'd want to be anchored in North Queensland.
Now, that is not the point. But, oh, all right, Davy. Yes, all right. I am prepared to be friends, to let bygones be bygones. So... if Michael should feel the same way...
we'll invite him to a farewell party for you. If he accepts, well, there's your answer.
All right then, Davy. Invite them all. Mr. and Mrs. Max Porter and Mr. and Mrs. Michael Bond.
Melissa, as I told you, you're a generous woman.
And as I told you, you're a wily old fox. And now, as that's obviously all you wanted to talk to me about...
well...
of course it was. So now... get on with your ringing up, Davy. I'm going back upstairs.
Okay, Millie, okay.
Well, Davy, it's a long time since I've seen you looking so pleased with yourself.
I haven't felt so good, Mabel, since Dave got fixed up with that job with Michael.
Is it something to do with Melissa's farewell party? She was down here a while back, wasn't she?
She was, and Mabel, she agreed.
About Max and Michael?
Yes, I put it to her straight, and, well, she agreed.
Oh, there's an awful lot that's very likeable about Melissa. Do I take it you've been ringing Max and Michael?
Wasn't going to let any grass grow under my feet on that one.
And?
Spoke to them all. Max, Silver, Michael, Eleanor. And they all said they'd be downright delighted to come. So there now. All we have to do is provide the party.
You mean all I have to do is to provide the party?
Oh, I say, Mabel, it isn't going to be too much for you, is it?
Of course not, Davy. I was only having a joke. Look, I'm as pleased as you are. Never could stand bad feeling.
And as for bitterness, it's downright corrosive.
Corrosive, that's the word, Mabel. You've hit it, yes. Hurts everything and everybody who comes in contact with it. I don't mind telling you I'm very pleased about this dinner, Mabel.
I know, Davy. To be hoped everybody can say the same after they've eaten it.
And so ends today's episode of Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith.
In 1967, Gwen Meredith was awarded an MBE for services to radio and entertainment. It'll be difficult to name a more deserving recipient. Through her writing for radio, she mesmerised millions. Here now is episode 5793 from September the 28th, 1976.
The ABC presents Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. Realizing Jane's unhappiness at the news that Jack and Fleur were going to try to rebuild their marriage, Melissa decided to take her to the States. Before leaving, Jane is to go to Dunvegan, where she'll spend some time with her family, her mother coming down from Narweena. Meanwhile, old Davy has persuaded Melissa to bury the hatchet and allow him to invite Max and Silver Porter and Michael and Eleanor Bond to a farewell dinner. Now, on the day of the dinner, old Davy and Mabel are in the kitchen.
You're in early, Davy.
I wondered if there was anything I could do to help Mabel.
No thanks, Davy, not a thing. Joe's been down here most of the day, and even Melissa's been quite useful.
Oh, that sounds a bit sour, Mabel.
Oh, not really. But you know Melissa. She's not the one to get stuck into scrubbing the kitchen.
But did you have to scrub the kitchen today? Did Melly really do that?
No, but she did do the flowers.
Oh.
Had them sent out from Canberra.
Well, she did, eh? Must be wanting this dinner to be quite a success, don't you reckon?
I reckon.
I must say things are turning out very well. Only one thing to be regretted. Bella's not here.
Yes, that's a shame. Especially with her father and Silver coming. Never mind. David'll be here, and Joanna and Rennie. Can't have everything.
I guess not. Are you sure there's nothing I can do?
No thanks, Davy. I've left it to Rennie to look after the liquid part of the entertainment, and I'm going to deal with the food from now on. Oh, and young Jane will help me with the serving. Oh, incidentally, Jane had a ring from her family while you were out. Mrs. MacArthur and Fleur are expected back in about a week.
Well, now, that's sooner than anyone expected, isn't it? Must mean Fleur's made good progress.
Yes. Jane said her great-grandmother was very excited.
I expect they'll all be.
Well, I must say Jane didn't seem exactly carried away with enthusiasm.
Oh, well, I don't suppose young people can be expected to light up at the prospect of seeing a grandmother and an aunt. I reckon the MacArthurs would be pretty pleased, though.
This is a very nice lunch, Rose.
Thank you, Granny.
Though I must say, I feel too excited to do justice to it.
What's there to be excited about, Mother?
Oh, really, Ed. Meg and Fleur coming home in time for Anne's visit and in time to see Jane before she goes abroad. And you ask what there is to be excited about.
Well, Topsy certainly had some good news to take over to Ern and Catherine when she went.
Well, I didn't want her to go. Not with Flu in that house.
No, I think she'll be all right, Ed. After all, I've been there and I survived it.
Topsy can't be too careful.
At my age, neither can I.
It'll be lovely for you and Meg, Jim, having so many of the family here together.
Oh, there'll still be quite a few of the family not here, of course, but when you have one as big as ours, I suppose it'd be asking too much to expect to get them all together at the same time.
Unless it's for a funeral.
Oh, a very happy thought to throw into the conversation, Ed. I suppose you were thinking of mine. Well, I don't expect anybody to come from far-flung places to see me buried. I never can see why people consider it necessary to come and see you dead when they didn't bother to see you alive. In any case, I have no intention of dying at the moment.
I should certainly hope not, Granny.
I realise I'm very old, but I still enjoy life, and I intend to hang on to it as long as possible.
Good for you, Granny.
Quite definitely as long as possible. In any case, to die now would be extremely inconvenient. A great annoyance to everybody.
Death does not wait on other people's convenience, nor on our own wishes, ma'am.
Well, I can assure you, Ed, that it's going to wait on mine. For the time being, anyway.
I have always liked a woman of spirit.
There have been times when Mother's spirit hasn't been so welcome.
Eh? What's that, Ed?
Now, Ed was only pulling your leg, Granny.
Oh.
I'm wondering whether we should get in touch with Jack.
Meg's cable didn't say anything about that, Jim.
No, Rose. I should think almost certainly Meg would send another cable to Jack.
Be very extraordinary if she didn't.
I think all the same I might put a call through to him.
It must be very nice not to have to consider the size of your phone bills.
Well,
Jack.
I have to consider mine, Ed. Don't make any mistake about that.
Where would you ring him, Jim?
Oh, good question, Granny.
Perhaps you could ring the Lawsons. They'd give him a message.
I never have cared for involving other people in one's private affairs.
Well, I don't know that there's anything particularly private about Meg and Fleur coming back from London, Ed. And all I'm doing is checking that Jack received a cable. After all, what if by any chance his cable didn't arrive?
Yours did?
Yes, well, probably it's quite unnecessary. But I think I'll ring all the same.
Lunch ready yet?
Yes. Is Jack with you?
No. Why? Want him for something?
A phone call from Mr. MacArthur.
What's he want? Oh, something about Fleur, I suppose.
Yes. She and Mrs. MacArthur will be back in a week's time.
I suppose Jack'll want to go south. Blasted nuisance.
Why, Ted?
Why? We're in the middle of harvesting, of course.
But you have young Ted
I'd
here.
still have to get someone to take Jack's place if he's aiming to be away for long. Good Lord, he only just seems to have got back.
Well, they must have decided to let Fleur travel sooner than Jack expected.
Well, I hope Jack's pleased, because I'm not.
Oh, Ted. I don't suppose Jack will be away all that long.
Depends if he's going to the MacArthurs.
Well, anyway, when will you be seeing him?
This afternoon.
Well, then don't forget to give him Mr. MacArthur's message. And, Ted,
Hmm?
don't make it too hard for Jack. Life's tough enough on him right now.
It's going to be hard on me, too. I suppose it's a forlorn hope that he mightn't want to go south. Anyway, I'll see him this afternoon. So apparently they were making sure you'd got the news, Jack.
There was a cable waiting for me when I got home at lunchtime.
They're coming back sooner than you thought, aren't they?
A bit. But time goes by. I didn't get back yesterday, you know.
I suppose you're right. Anyway, how does this affect you? And incidentally, me? Are you aiming to go south?
Yes, Ted. Sorry, but I reckon I'll want to do that.
Oh, well, I'm not surprised, of course. Hope you won't be away too long, though.
No.
How long?
Well, I have to work out times of planes and things, have to get there in time to meet them, see them on their way to Dunvegan, and then get back again. I'll have to get it worked out before I can tell you in detail.
You won't be going to Dunvegan?
I don't think that's necessary.
Well, that certainly suits me. In any case, they're not going to be in Sydney alone. Hasn't Fleur got a sister there?
Yes, Jackie Rossiter. I'm sorry, I know it'll be inconvenient for you, but I have to go to Sydney.
Oh, just thought Jackie might cope.
So she might. But this is my business. What Jackie does is hers.
You're early, Stephen.
Nice change. For once, I've had an easy day. How about you?
An interesting one.
Hmm?
I had a ring from home. But come and sit down and I'll fix us a drink and tell you all about it.
Right. Now, what's this news, Jackie?
Dad's had a cable from Mum saying she and Fleur will be back in a week's time.
Oh, that's good going. I'm pleased to hear it. Fleur must be making excellent progress.
Dad said the cable mentioned that. And I'll go and meet them, of course. And as Rossi won't be home, I thought we might be able to put them up overnight if they don't want to get straight on a plane for Wagga.
Yes, surely. Jackie,
Yes, darling?
Do you think you ought to travel home with them? Or is Jack planning to do that?
I wouldn't have a clue what Jack's doing. And I don't suppose there's any need for anyone to go with them. After all, they're travelling all the way from London on their own.
Oh, I just thought with Anne down and your mother and Fleur coming home, you might like to be part and parcel of the celebrations. Because celebrations there undoubtedly will be.
Undoubtedly. Oh, Stephen, you're a lovely man.
That means you would like to go. Well, as you said, Rossi won't be here, and I can eat out.
I'll have a guilty conscience all the time I'm away.
But it won't stop you going.
No, this time it won't. Though, mind you, I shall only go for a couple of days.
Oh, make it worthwhile. And Jackie, needless to say, I'll do everything I can to ease things.
Oh, thank you, darling. Sometimes it's such a comfort having someone in the business.
And if you like, invite Fleur to stay here while she's seeing the specialists. She might feel that she wants to make a start with that pretty soon.
Stephen, what an understanding man you are. Sometimes, you know, I can't believe my luck at having snaffled you.
You might remember I was no prize at the time. No, I was the lucky one, Jackie.
Well, we both seem to be satisfied, don't we? And happy. So, darling, here's to the future.
And so ends today's episode of Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith.
In this, the final part of Blue Hills Revisited, we'll hear the last two episodes of the serial broadcast on the 29th and 30th of September 1976. With only 2 episodes left before the serial ended after a run of 27 years, Gwen Meredith had the difficult task of tying up all the loose ends. She was determined to write a satisfactory ending, or at least position the characters in relatively settled circumstances to allow the audience to project their own conclusions. It was during this time that Tim Bowden asked Gwen Meredith if in the past she'd ever felt she couldn't go on.
Oh, once or twice, yes, but never to the extent that it drove me into the ground, because I would have given it up in that case. That is why I'm giving it up now, because I am mentally tired, and I feel that the only way to have a real rest is to stop it. I mean, this is not saying I won't ever write another word. I probably in a year's time will go mad if I don't write another word. But I did feel, yes, I'm tired. As I said to you a moment ago, I find I want a word and it just doesn't come. Well, this, you know, you really need to have a rest then.
Over the years then, when you needed a rest, how long did you break for?
Oh, well, on 3 or 4 occasions, I have either written ahead and then taken a couple of months off. But of course, this defeats its object because you have to work doubly hard before you stop. Otherwise, I have taken some months off. The ABC were very kind about it. They were prepared to repeat an earlier part of the serial, which I edited and rewrote a lot of, but of course this isn't nearly as tiring as writing new material. You don't have to spin it out of your head, it's there. And then I would go overseas, which would be a complete change. I think I've done this 3 times, yes.
Has anyone ever written an episode of Blue Hills other than you?
Yes, once. One of my friends, who at one stage I thought I might be able to pass it over or work with somebody, and this lass came along and helped me, and she did research for me. I wasn't too well at the time, and I said, let's try if you write an episode. And she wrote 1. Now, I can't remember whether that was actually recorded or whether I went over it, but that was the only one that anyone else has ever had a finger in. But then we decided that it just didn't gel that way, because 2 people can't do it, or we couldn't anyway. And it was a thing that depended so much on character. I think you could do it in series that depended on plot. But to me, as I said before, this has always depended on character. And it's me knowing the characters so well, and I couldn't just all of a sudden say to you, look, would you mind taking this over?
A lot of the people who've written in have asked, could this be done? They just can't bear to see Blue Hills go. In fact, one lady even wrote quite petulantly and said, why hasn't Gwen Meredith trained someone to take over from her? Was this ever a possibility?
I don't think so, and I don't think anyone else would want to take over. Well, I certainly wouldn't want to take over somebody else's serial. I'd much rather start another one, and I'm sure the person who follows on from me would prefer to do that too.
Gwen Meredith and Tim Bowden. The serial that followed was Search for Elizabeth, commissioned by an ABC public opinion poll. It failed to gain acceptance by the audience. Nothing, it seemed, could ever replace Blue Hills. Here now is episode 5794.
The ABC presents Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. Jane has left the Gap for Dunvegan, where she's staying for a short time before leaving with Melissa for America. Before she left the Gap, old Davy gave a farewell dinner to which, with Melissa's approval, he invited Max and Silver Porter and Michael and Eleanor Bond, thus healing the breach between them and Melissa. Bella, who is having some trouble with feeding the new baby, is still in Canberra, while at Silky Flat, Ted is bewailing the fact that Jack has gone to Sydney to meet Meg and Fleur, who are arriving from London.
Well, I wish Fleur and her mother and Jack and the whole lot of them further this morning. Oh, what a day.
Never mind, Ted. Sit down and relax. What happened?
Oh, that fool of a boy Angelo sent me another one of his relations. I don't know how he's going to manage this contract harvesting. He's a first-rate bloke himself. Honestly, he's got the world's worst mob of hangers on.
Maybe this boy just lacks experience, Ted.
In my opinion, he lacks everything, beginning with brains. And young Ted was no help this morning either. Just as well we're getting out of sugar. He simply doesn't seem to have any aptitude for cane farming. Not that I ever thought it required genius.
Ted, I'm sure none of it's as bad as you're making out. And not all that important either.
Eh? Well, you've got me wrung out pretty well, haven't you, Em? Well, it was a trying morning, but I don't suppose it was any worse than that. I don't blame young Ted, really. I'm sick of cane myself.
Well, won't be long before you've both turned your back on it. Before you know where you are, we'll all be at Wangalee.
You're still keen about that idea, Emmy?
Yes, Ted. Yes. For all of us, I think it'll be a very fine thing to go back. And it'll be a fine thing for your father, too, to have you there and young Ted to carry on. Yes. I think it's the best decision you've ever made.
You do? Well, I feel pretty pleased about it myself.
And young Ted's absolutely sky high. It's a very different thing for him, of course. He's only looking forward. For us, there's so much in the past that has led up to this going back. Lives do seem to round themselves out, don't they, Ted?
Do they? Well, perhaps I hadn't thought about it. Yes, I'm glad to be going back. Not backwards, mind you, I didn't mean that. Just back to Wangalee.
All the same, he does complete the circle. What, is that Flora I heard? No, apparently not. It is lovely having her while Jack's away.
All I've got to say is thank heaven he won't be away too long. I'd have been really browned off if he'd decided to go up to Dunvegan with the rest of them.
Well, I reckon he knew you couldn't spare him, Ted. He knows how busy you are here.
I don't think that would have stopped him going if he'd wanted to. I reckon he's keeping clear of the place because he doesn't want to meet young Jane.
Well...
Pretty situation he'd find himself in, with Jane and Fleur both on his hands.
Oh, I'm so glad Jane's going to America. It'll be a whole new life for her.
And the same old life for Jack.
Oh, it's the best thing that could have happened, Ted. And I think there's a good chance of Jack and Fleur making a go of things.
I wouldn't like to have my fortune depending on it.
Well, I feel confident anyway. And I'd have been terribly disappointed if Jack hadn't gone to Sydney to meet Fleur and Mrs. MacArthur. It would have been a bad start.
I suppose you're right. Irritating for me, but important for him, I suppose.
Oh, Mum, we thought for a while we must have missed you. Hello, Fleur, dear.
Oh, it's good to see you. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Mrs. Mac. Hello, Fleur.
Hello.
Oh, I guess you're worn out. We have a car waiting. Jackie's...
And the sooner we get Fleur into it, the better.
Yes, it's been a long trip.
Jackie, perhaps if you take your mother and Fleur out, I'll see about the luggage. eh?
All right, Jack. Come on, Fleur, you poor little thing. Oh, what a ghastly time you've had. Here, now give me your arm.
They were very helpful on the plane, of course, but even so. I left the arrangements here to you, Jackie.
Yeah, well, I'm taking you home with me, where you're both going straight to bed. And then tomorrow I booked the three of us on a plane for Wagga, and Dad's meeting us there.
Oh, Jackie, you're coming too. That's lovely, darling.
Well, not only me, Mum. Anne's down from the station.
Anne! Oh, Jackie.
And Jane's come over from the Gap.
Jane?
Yes. She's been there for quite a while. Quite a family reunion. And it'll be much more of a reunion when we all get home.
Is Jack coming?
No, I don't think so. I mentioned it when he called for me at the unit today. He only got down in time to come out and meet you, Fleur.
He hasn't brought Flora.
No, I understand she's with Emmy Lawson. But you can discuss all that with Jack when we get back to the unit. Well, now, Fleur, I suggest a shower and into bed with a nice fresh cup of tea. And while you're drinking it, you can talk to Jack.
All right, Jackie. Yes, I'd like a shower.
Then come on, darling. I'll look after you.
I'll unpack for you, Fleur. I'll bring her pyjamas and dressing gown into the bathroom, Jackie.
Oh, thanks, Mum.
And then, Jack, my dear, I'll be back to hear how things have been with you.
Yes, right up, Mrs. MacArthur.
Well, now... Oh... I must say it's good to relax.
Perhaps I should have stayed in London with you. I guess the trip wasn't easy.
Oh, you had things to do here, Jack. And in any case, it's over now. But tell me, are you coming back to Dunvegan with us?
No, Mrs. Mac, I can't do that. We're in the middle of harvesting up at Silky, and I don't reckon Ted can spare me.
Oh, yes, I quite understand. And I'm sure Fleur will, too.
Well, as soon as I can make arrangements to get away, though, and as soon as Fleur's up to it, I'll come down and bring Flora with me.
You leave her with Fleur?
That was the arrangement.
Jackie rang me in London as soon as she heard that we were coming home.
Yeah?
And, you see, she suggested that if Fleur wants to come to Sydney to see about further surgery, she could stay with her and Stephen.
Well, that makes a difference, doesn't it? That'd be a great help.
Especially as Stephen will know all the ropes. But I was going to say that when I told Fleur, she decided she'd like to come to Jackie as soon as possible, to go right ahead with whatever has to be done.
So it would be better if I kept Flora at Silky.
I think perhaps it would, Jack, for the time being anyway. But talk about it with Fleur after Jackie gets her into bed.
So, Fleur, your mother said you're likely to come back to Sydney pretty soon.
Yes, Jack, I want to get on with it. Get everything over and done with.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you can't understand that.
Oh, yes, I guess I can.
I talked to Jackie about it just now. And she says if I want to, I can come back with her.
But will that give you long enough to convalesce at Dunvegan?
Well, I can convalesce here just as well. And I won't feel I'm wasting time.
Well, I guess Stephen's the one to give the best answer about all that. But naturally, so far as I'm concerned, of course it's okay.
I hoped you might bring Flora down with you.
Well, I would have if I'd known you wouldn't be at Dunvegan. I was going to bring her as soon as you felt you were well enough to look after her.
Well, I'm torn both ways. I want to see Flora. I want to see her terribly. But I also want to know what's going to happen. About my face.
Well, it's up to you, Fleur. I can understand how you feel, and, well, compromise might be to come back with Jackie, get all the advice you can.
I want more than advice. I want action. I want them to do something.
Well, I guess they will, too. What I was going to say was that I'd keep Flora until such times it suits you to have her, either here or at Dunvegan. How's that?
I suppose it's the only thing to do.
Well, you let me know how things go here. And maybe I can even bring her down in a few weeks, just for a visit, and then I can take her back again.
Emmy's looking after her.
While I'm away. And Silver will take over as soon as she gets up there.
I see.
And that won't be too long, either. But everything's going ahead great guns. And Fleur, while you're waiting about, how about you plan a new house for us? Dad and Silver are going to have Emmys, and we're going to have a new one. You'll be able to get stuck into some of those books on houses and gardens.
I've always wanted a new house, the kind I like.
Well, here's your chance.
Jack,
Hmm?
you won't be coming to Dunvegan, will you?
Well, no. I'm sorry.
I
but-
think it's much better you should get back north.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way about it, because it, would be a bit difficult, a bit hard on Ted, I mean.
When are you going back?
Well, I thought I'd push off first thing in the morning. Stephen's taking time out to put you and your mother and Jackie on a plane for Wagga, so I'll just...
I don't know how long it'll be before I can come to Silky Flat.
Yeah, I know that. But listen, don't worry. Take things slowly. We'll both need to take things slowly, but I reckon we'll... I've been thinking about things, and I've come to the conclusion that if we could try and wipe out the last year or so and hang on to those early days together. Just remember when we first met, when we first, kind of became aware of one another. Do you remember the day up in the high plains?
You said then that you'd never taken any other girl up there, or told her how you felt about it.
And I haven't taken any other girl up since either. Let's hang on to things like that, Fleur. That way, I think we've a pretty fair chance of making out.
And so ends today's episode of Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith.
Gwen Meredith's Blue Hills deservedly holds a unique place in the history of radio broadcasting in this country. It's unlikely we'll ever again hear its equal. I trust you've enjoyed our look back at this memorable slice of Australian radio. For the last time, Ronald Hamner's unforgettable melody Pastoral, on Thursday, September the 30th, 1976, introduced a special half-hour episode, number 5795.
The ABC presents the final episode of Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. The lives of the various people of Blue Hills have moved towards a reasonably settled future, or so it would seem at the moment. Meg and Fleur are back in Australia, and Fleur is staying at Dunvegan, where several members of the family have foregathered. She's to go to Sydney with Jackie for further surgery, and after this will return to Jack at Silky Flat. Topsy and Mark are delighted that Topsy is pregnant, and Rose and Ed, though upset by the accident which destroyed part of their cottage, are both very excited about the coming event. Judy and Don Jamison have sold their house at Manaroo and are negotiating for the Poplars, a small country property. Max and Silver Porter, in partnership with Jack, have decided to buy Ted Lawson's cane farm at Silky Flat, while Ted has come full circle by arranging to take over the family property, Wongalee. Gray and Penny Porter are happily secure at Armadale, while Kay, temporarily shattered by her unfortunate attachment to Ted Lawson, is making a new life in London. At the Gap, Melissa has been busily preparing for her departure to the States, and before leaving, made her peace with both Max Porter and Michael Bond. She's also done her best to help Jane Roberts by deciding to take her to San Francisco. David Chalmers has taken over Max's job of managing for Michael Bond, and old Davy, though concerned about the situation in the beef industry, insists on believing in a brighter future. Bella's new baby has arrived without undue drama, and she's due home from hospital within a few hours. Meanwhile, at Silky Flat, Emmy calls as the back door slams.
Oh, is that you, Ted?
Yes, Em.
The others with you?
Jackie is. Hey, Emmy.
Hello, Jack. Where's young Ted?
Shot off into Silky.
Reckon there's a pretty strong attraction at Silky.
Yes. Good legs and red hair.
Oh, then you can't blame me for thinking she's one up on a cane harvester.
Well, how about a cup of tea, eh?
Certainly what I'm here for, Em.
I won't wait if you don't mind, Emmy.
Oh, surely you can't be as busy as all that.
Well, he's pushing off too.
Oh, I just came in to see if you wanted anything in town.
Oh, no, I don't think so, thanks, Jack.
Uh-huh. Well, I'll get along then. See you later, Ted.
Good.
Sorry I can't wait for tea, Emmy. I'll let myself out.
Honestly, I might as well run this place on my own and be done with it.
Oh, come on, cheer up, Ted.
Well, with that bin boy no better than he was a week ago and young Ted chasing off.
Forget the redhead. He soon will, once he gets to Wongalee.
You're expecting everything to change when we get to Wongalee, aren't you, Em?
No. But it will be a new lease of life somehow. We'll have come full circle. But it won't be an end, more like a new beginning. What is it they say? As one door closes, another opens. Well, Wongalee's the new door, Ted. For us. And more especially for young Ted. And maybe there won't be any redheads handy.
Oh, then he'll find a blonde or a brunette.
Well, after all, you can't blame him for taking after his father.
Oh, fair go now, am I?
Well, don't go on so about him shooting off to Silky. He'll be back soon, I guess. Jack, too.
Jack very soon, I trust. He's only gone to send a telegram to Bella.
Oh, yes, he told me she's due home today. I'll bet there's a bit of excitement at the Gap.
Everything here is just right now. Except, Joe, it looks a bit bare somehow.
There are no flowers, Mabel.
Oh, no, of course, that's it. Well, Joe, you're a better hand at arranging flowers than I am. There are plenty of daffodils out.
I don't think we need bother. Mother's made herself responsible for the flowers. I thought she told you. She's having them sent out from Canberra.
From Canberra?
And I imagine they'll be already arranged.
Well, Bella's going to be set back on her heels by that. But now I must go and give a last look at young Dave's room.
And I'd better go get Rennie's morning tea. Oh, my, yes, look at the time. Oh, Rennie, darling, have you been waiting long? I'm sorry the tea is late.
Oh, not to worry, Joe. No panic.
Mabel and I have been getting Bella's flat ready.
And how's it going?
It's finished, down to the last detail. Oh, except for the flowers, and Mother is responsible for those. We're waiting for them to arrive.
Where from?
Canberra.
Oh, Joe, come on.
I know. Maybe it does seem rather excessive, but you know Mother.
Well, I thought I was getting to understand her, but she does break out in odd ways. Bella will probably think she's dotty.
On the contrary, Rennie, darling, Bella will be thrilled. I have yet to meet any woman who is not flattered and delighted by the gift of flowers.
Oh, do I take that as a hint?
Well, if you care to. I wouldn't be surprised, Rennie, if Mother leaves any day now. She's all packed, you know.
Waiting for a whistle from the States.
Honestly, Rennie, I know you're training a new sheepdog, but really...
Sorry, Joe. But you said yourself she was waiting till Castles could come to San Francisco to meet her. Joe, do you really think your mother's going to marry this chap?
I'm as certain of it as one can be certain of anything where Mother is concerned.
Yeah, which isn't saying so much. Joe?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't changed your mind about going back with her for a break?
Nothing would induce me to change my mind, Rennie.
You make me feel a bit selfish, Joe.
Well, so long as you remain suitably humble about it. Rennie, darling, don't be silly. I'm doing what I want to do. I am thoroughly selfish.
You're a liar, Joe. A lovely, lovely liar, and I'm mad about you. And if you ever do decide to go off to America or anywhere else, I'll beat the daylights out of you. Joe.
Why? And at this time of the morning? Oh, just as well. Coming! Oh, Uncle Davy.
Joe, I've just seen your mother cutting a whole lot of flowers into Bella's. Very fancy they looked.
I'll bet.
They're a welcome home gift for Bella.
Well, it's a nice thought. But Joe, here's your mail.
Oh, thanks, Uncle Davy.
One for you too, Rennie.
Oh, thanks. From Mum.
How's she getting on in that new house of hers?
Having the time of her life.
Not missing the shop?
Oh, glad to see the back of it. And what's more, she reckons Manaroo is getting a much better deal now that Chook and Mrs. Thompson are running it.
Looks as though they've fallen on their feet, and good luck to them. Well, I'd better take this letter through to your mother, Joe. Especially as it's come from New York.
Oh, is that so? then I've a feeling Mother will be very pleased to receive it.
Well, for heaven's sake.
Oh, Davy.
Good morning, Davy.
Morning, Millie. Some mail for you. A letter from New York.
Oh, thank you, Davy.
It's the only one, I'm afraid. Nothing for us, Mabel.
I thought there might have been one from Martha.
Well, all I was expecting was bills. But, Mabel, what about morning tea?
We'll go back to the cottage to have it.
I'll drop by to see you later then, Mabel.
Come now and have a drink of tea.
Thank you, but I think not, Davy. I think not.
Well, Davy, here's your tea. Didn't take 2 ups, did it?
Must be a world record.
I got everything ready before I went up to Bella's.
Couldn't talk Millie into joining us. She was much too keen to see what was in that letter.
As you very well knew when you asked her. She's a strange mixture, you know, Melissa. Can be very shrewd and intelligent. But at the same time, she can sometimes react to situations as though the years hadn't touched her at all.
You mean as though she was still young and silly?
Oh, just say young. Because Melissa does seem to have been able to hold on to youth. And don't look at me like that, Davy. I wasn't meaning she'd had her face lifted or something. I was talking about her spirit, not the colour of her hair.
I knew what you were talking about, Mabel.
May I come in?
Oh, so help me talk of the devil.
In the dining room, Melissa.
Come down to have a drink of tea after all, have you, Millie?
No, Davy. I have decided that, as David is going into Canberra today, I shall go with him.
Oh, well, that's hardly world-shattering, Millie. But Dave won't be there long, you know. No time for shopping.
You have misunderstood me, Davy. I meant that I would take this opportunity to start on my way back to San Francisco.
Start for America today? But Dave will be leaving in a couple of hours.
I'm aware of that.
I am hearing this straight, aren't I?
Well, I don't know why you should find it so astonishing. You knew that I was going. You knew that I'd been ready for days.
But I didn't know you were aiming to up and go at 2 hours' notice. I thought you were waiting till Bella got home.
Well, I won't have to leave without seeing Bella. I shall see her in Canberra. I think this is going to be very convenient for everybody.
But merely 10 minutes ago, there was no talk of you leaving.
I hope, Davy, that I am not so atrophied that I cannot change my mind inside 10 minutes.
Oh, Mabel, you better pour out my tea. I need it.
Oh, now, Davy, you're being tiresome.
No, Millie, I guess I'm just being old. You might be able to decide to be up and away across the world in 10 minutes, but it takes me longer to get used to the idea.
But, Davy, Melissa hasn't made up her mind in 10 minutes. She made it up weeks ago. She's just been waiting for the right moment. And it's my guess that she got news in that letter just now that made this the right moment.
Yes, Mabel. It was a letter from Mr. Castles to tell me when he could be in San Francisco. And, well, as it seems to have taken quite a while to reach me, I haven't any time to spare before I get to Sydney to make all my arrangements.
Oh, so that's it. I see. When are you coming back, Millie?
I don't know exactly, Davy. But before too long. Oh, yes. I'll be back in Australia again. Now, I must go and see Joe and do my last-minute packing, of course. Only the very last things. Everything else is ready.
You better ring and see if you can get a seat on the plane. Look pretty silly if you get to Canberra and find yourself stuck there. Well, so help me.
Yes. Now she's going. She's certainly going in a rush. Still, we expected it.
Oh, I certainly didn't.
But only a short while back you were worried because she wasn't getting underway. Melissa's told you now she was waiting to hear from Mr. Castles.
Well, I can't see what's so important about him being in San Francisco the minute she gets there.
But we were saying a few minutes ago Melissa's managed to keep some of the enchantment of youth. She's incurably romantic.
All the same, to go off at 2 hours' notice.
You might remember, Davy, when she first came back to Australia all those years ago, it was equally unexpected.
You're right enough there. If I remember, the only one who could go to Sydney to meet her was Max. Yeah, and I bet that suited Melly all right, too. Yeah, even though nothing came of it, only unhappiness for a while. Funny the way life goes.
I like to think it generally works out pretty well. Oh, but you're letting your tea get cold, Davy, and that isn't like you.
Well, I've had the wind taken out of my sails. And whatever you say, Mabel, I'll bet Joe'll be a bit rocked, too.
I don't think Joe's going to be surprised.
You don't? Well, I'll bet Rennie'll have a few words to say.
Well, now, Joe, darling, are you ready?
Yes.
And Rennie, I want you to deliver a message to your mother. Tell her that I'm sorry not to have been able to get across to Manaroo to see her before I left, but I'll surely write to her from the States. Joe, you are ready, darling? And I don't want to keep David waiting. I must have a few words with Bella in Canberra and see that darling baby. Oh, Joe, dear, if you take my coat, my hat, and my handbag, and these few odds and ends and put them in the car, I'll just go and say goodbye to Davy and Mabel.
Right, Mother.
I shan't be long. Tell David. I won't be more than a few minutes in the cottage. Well, now, Davy, why are you looking so lugubrious?
Oh, didn't realize I was looking anywhere special.
Well, you were. Now, Davy, you must give me credit for knowing what I'm doing.
I just wish I'd met this fellow, Millie. I wish we knew more about him.
Bless you, Davy. You must trust my judgment.
Yes, well, that hasn't always been too reliable. You've done some pretty silly things in your time, Millie.
Oh, escapades, perhaps. But I am not a fool, Davy. Not really a fool. So, stop worrying. Goodbye, Davy.
Goodbye, Millie. I hope we will be seeing you again. You'll have to bring this fellow over here to visit us.
I promise. Does that suit you?
Yeah, fair enough. Goodbye, Millie.
Goodbye, Davy. Bye-bye, Mabel. And thank you for everything. For everything. And I shall be seeing you again. Again and again.
A good trip, Melissa, and a happy time in America.
Thank you, Mabel. Bye-bye. Look after yourselves and write me often.
I hope you'll be very happy, Millie.
And for you, Davy, I wish a beef bonanza. Bye-bye.
Yeah, beef bonanza, that'll be the day. Mabel.
Don't worry, Davy.
Oh, I hope she'll be all right.
She will be. As she said, she isn't a fool. Foolish sometimes.
Often.
All right then, often. But for all that, not a fool. And now, Davy, I want you to help me. There are still things to do before Bella gets here. The front needs a sweep. Oh, there are leaves everywhere. And don't forget, Max and Silver are coming over.
Okay, Mabel. Though I bet Bella will be far too excited to notice a few leaves. Bella, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks, Davy.
Yeah, let's have a look at my grandson.
Dad, I didn't know you were going to be here.
Hello,
And
darling.
Silver, too.
Oh, hello, Mabel. Welcome home, Bella. Oh, isn't he a darling?
Yeah, here, let's get you out of the car, Bella.
You better give me the baby to hold.
Now, for goodness sake, don't you drop him, Davy.
So help me, don't you think I've handled little nippers before?
He doesn't seem to like the transfer much.
No, he'll be okay in a minute. Here, Max, come and take a good look. Who do you reckon he's like, you or me?
I think he's a Chalmers, Davy.
Yeah, well, of course he is.
You better see the next one takes after our side of the family, Bella.
Oh, Dad, give me a chance.
Yeah, well, look here, I think we better get him up to the flat.
The whole place has been turned upside down by Mabel and Joe. Incidentally, Joe, did your mother get away all right?
We left her at the air office, Uncle Davy.
But she saw Bella and young Max.
Young Max. How do you like the sound of that, Max?
Yeah, it's pretty good. He might have your features, Davy.
Oh, heaven help him.
But he has got my name.
So it's even pecking. But now I must go and change him. Give me 10 minutes, Mabel, and I'll see you all then. Come on, Dave.
Good.
Oh, Dave. Home.
Yep. There's no place like it, is there, darling?
Oh, you and me and young Dave and young Max.
Mm-hmm. We better have a girl next so it can be young Bella.
Oh, Dave.
And if we do, you know what she's going to look like, don't you? Just like you did when I dragged you out of the duck pond.
And decided to marry me. There and then.
Yes, decided to marry. I must have been mad.
Demented. Oh, Dave, I'm so happy. I'm so happy I could cry.
Oh, Bella.
You remember in the hospital when you first saw me and I was weak and silly and a bit doped? And I said, I said it'd be a good time to die.
Yes, I remember.
Well, it seemed to me that nothing, no moment of time could ever be better than that. But, darling, I was wrong. Oh, this is much better. Oh, but Dave, we must get ready to join the others.
Yeah, at the moment I could do without the others. Oh, I know they're the best ever, but...
Oh, Dave, we have all of life to be happy together. Oh, darling, am I neglecting you? Dave, bring in the nappy bag, will you?
All right.
Oh, isn't he beautiful? Isn't he just beautiful? Oh, but the nappy bag. If you put it on this table, darling, behind me...
Right.
Good heavens.
What's up?
The flowers. I didn't notice them when I came in. I couldn't get past that glorious feeling of being here, but... Dave, who on earth are they from?
Melissa.
Oh, I should have guessed. They're overwhelming, quite overwhelming. And also overdone.
Yeah, there's a telegram on the mantelpiece, too. They rang it through just before I left. It's from Jack.
Oh, isn't that beaut?
Here you are.
Oh, thanks, darling. Welcome home. Hope to see him before he gets to high school. Oh, fancy him remembering when he has so much on his plate. You know, sometimes I feel all wrong, Dave.
Hmm?
Being so happy, I mean. When things are in such a mess for Jack.
Oh, they might work out.
Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps after all that's happened, Fleur might just take a good long look at herself. That's the one chance they have, you know. Come in.
Oh, there you are, darling. I wondered where you'd got to.
I got sick of it, Mum. Everyone out there's so frightfully cheerful.
They're happy at being together again, dear.
But they've been the same for days.
Well, it's a long time since we've had so many of the family here at the same time.
Oh, yes, I suppose I can understand why they're talking at once.
Suppose they are, too. But goodness, dear, remember when you were all young, what a babble there was in those days. Oh, by the way, Judy rang again a little while ago.
Oh, she and Don must be in the money. Oh, what for this time?
To say goodbye to Jane. Because goodness knows when any of us will see her again. Anne was telling me that she'll very likely go on to Europe after America.
It's to be hoped she has better luck than I did.
Yes, darling. The other reason Judy rang was to know how you were and whether you really decided to go back with Jackie today.
I have my case already packed.
Yes, dear, yes, I know, but I haven't felt quite sure it's really what you want to do.
I suppose I'm very transparent, am I, Mum? Well, to you, anyway. You see through me though I were glass. And I guess you don't like what you see all that much.
Oh, darling.
I'm frightened, Mum. About the operations, about the future. It might be a failure. Everything.
I don't believe that. But I can understand how you feel. You've been through a very bad time.
You'll always find an excuse for us, Mum. But deep down, I guess you've got a pretty poor opinion of me. Well, not only because I'm scared, but about Jack and everything.
Oh, darling, nobody goes through life without making mistakes. Sometimes they're perfectly honest mistakes. Sometimes they happen as a result of defects in our own character. But I don't believe there's a single person who hasn't at some time or other failed themselves and other people.
But some mistakes are hopeless, irretrievable.
No, Fleur. A life is a long time. And the greater part of your life, darling, is still ahead of you.
Jack said he thought we had a good chance of making a success of things if we hung on to the memories of the early days.
And I think Jack was right.
We were happy then.
And you can be happy again, darling. But so much, oh, so much always depends on ourselves.
We were happy.
Are you in there, Fleur?
Oh, yes, come in, Jackie.
Oh, I've been looking everywhere for you.
Sorry, I wanted to be quiet for a bit.
I was wondering if there's anything I can do to help you. Packing?
I've already packed, thanks, Jackie.
You have definitely decided then, Fleur?
Yes, Mum. I'm going. I don't know how I'll go, but I'll try. I really will try.
Who's on the phone, Jackie?
Call for Jane.
For me?
Yes, it's Mrs. Ford.
Oh, thanks, Aunt Jackie.
Probably to say you're not going to America after all.
Oh, Uncle Ed.
What a thing to say to the child, Ed.
Jane'd be terribly disappointed.
What an anticlimax it'd be.
Well, it would have achieved one thing, though, Anne.
What's that, Granny?
Brought you down from the bush. And I'm sure your mother's very grateful for that.
We were all thrilled to see Anne, Granny.
Oh, yes, it's been simply wonderful having everybody here. You know, Jim and I were only saying last night it was quite like the old days.
Big news.
Oh, I suppose Mrs. Ford has changed her mind again. Huh?
No way, Uncle Ed. She was ringing from Canberra on the way to Sydney. She wanted to make sure I'd be there soon. Mum, we're leaving for America in 2 days.
Oh, my goodness. How lucky you're already decided to go today.
We didn't want Dad to have to make 2 trips into Wagga.
It'll be fun, all going together.
By the way, Rose, where's Topsy?
Helping Catherine clear the lunch dishes, Ed.
You can depend on it that Topsy's the one helping.
Jackie, tell Fleur it's time to go, will you, dear? She's still in her room, I think.
Yes, all right, Mum.
Now, while Ern and I pack the luggage in the trailer, better get your goodbyes over.
Oh, dear. Oh, Ed, the time's really come. To say goodbye, I mean.
Now, Rose, tears aren't going to help anybody, are they?
No, Ed, you're quite right. I don't want Topsy to remember me looking miserable.
Then pull yourself together, dear. We'll go out and say goodbye to her quietly in the dining room. Eh?
Oh, my goodness, don't say that Jim's ready to go.
Well, it's time everybody got away. I'm not sure that we shouldn't be taking Topsy into Wagga ourselves, Rose.
But it'd be silly 2 cars going, Uncle Ed. And Uncle Jim said ages ago that he'd go to take all the others.
It's going to be rather a crush. I think you'd better come out with me, Topsy, and I'll put you in the front seat near Jim.
It might be a good idea. So goodbye, darling.
Goodbye, Auntie Rose. And don't you worry too much about that kitchen.
There are worse things in life than having to build a new kitchen, darling.
Not many, though.
But of course there are, Ed.
Anyway, get it finished. And then both come up to me.
That's the most wonderful thing to look forward to, Topsy, darling. Oh, we'll be happy from now till we come. Just planning it. I thought I was going to be awfully sad when you went. Now, instead of that, I'm feeling happy and excited.
Oh, Jim's obviously getting impatient.
You've said goodbye to Granny and Auntie Meg, darling.
Oh, yes, I got in early.
Well, now we'll go out to the car. We'll be ready even if the others have a stampede at the end.
Goodbye, Anne, dear. I suppose it'll be quite a while before we see you again.
Oh, let's hope not, Mum. And goodbye, Granny.
Goodbye, my dear.
Goodbye, Jane, dear.
Bye.
Have a lovely, lovely time.
Oh, thanks, Nan, and goodbye, Auntie Rose.
Yeah, I hope that you have a good trip, Jackie. Goodbye, my dear.
Bye, Granny. Goodbye, Mum. And don't worry about Fleur.
Oh, I will worry, of course, Jackie. I won't be able to help it. But, darling, it's wonderful the way you're taking over for me.
Nonsense, Mum. What are families for?
Come along now. We'll have to break it up. Now, everybody who's coming with me into the car.
Otherwise, they'll be left behind.
Come on, Fleur, dear.
Bye, Aunt Catherine. Bye, Granny. Look after yourself.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Jane. See as much of the world as you can. I wish I had had the opportunity of seeing more of it when I was your age.
Come on now.
That's her now. Come on, everybody, into the car.
Now, Fleur, if you get into the front seat near Topsy.
All right, Dad.
And Jackie and Anne and Jane in the back.
All right. Move over, Jane.
Well, I'm all mixed up with the luggage.
Yeah, there's so much of it, that's why. We need a Pantechnic and not a trailer. Right, now, all set?
Yes.
Right, away we go.
They're really going.
Now, Rose.
Now, Rose, my dear, what is there to be so sad about? Come along now.
It's saying goodbye, Granny.
Dear.
Poor little Fleur. Poor child. She'll have to build a whole new life
Well, I have to build a whole new kitchen.
Yes, well, one thing I've always admired about you, Ed, is your sense of proportion.
Well, really, Mother, you...
I always feel it's so sad to have to say goodbye.
Yes, Rose, it certainly is sad this time. I wonder when we'll see them all here together again. Hear their voices.
Never. We'll be under the sod by the time they all show up again.
Oh, speak for yourself. Personally, I have no intention of dying for a considerable time. I enjoy life far too much. In any case, it has always been my firm opinion that people are not really dead until nobody wishes to remember them anymore. And I flatter myself that at least a few people wish to remember me.
But they'll all be so far away.
I also maintain that distance need not matter greatly either. We don't have to see or hear people every day of the week to imagine them in our surroundings, even to live their lives with them.
But we don't know what's happening to them, Granny.
We can use our imagination. They can still be in our minds. They can still be with us. And so, you see, it isn't really so very hard to say goodbye. To say goodbye. To say goodbye and God bless.
And so ends Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith. Those taking part in the final episode were Emmy Amber May Cecil, Ted Rupert Chance, Jack John Hewitt, Joanna Faye Kelton, Mabel Hilda Skerr, Rennie Alistair Smart, Old Davy Max Osbiston, Melissa Joan Bruce, Bella Lola Brooks, Max Ron Roberts, Silver Lynn Murphy, David Richard Meikle, Fleur Juliana Allen, Meg Ethel Lang, Jackie Myrna Dodd, Jane Faye Anderson, Ed Charles McCallum, Granny Queenie Ashton, Anne Patty Crocker, Rose Miva Drummond, Jim John Barnes, Topsy Nairi Thompson. The technical operator for Blue Hills was Terry Unit. Peter Wilkinson was in charge of sound effects, and your narrator was Paul McClay. The production, Don Crosby.